Hello and welcome to the Heated Debate brought to you by Emirates. As always, we're here every single match day to talk about the controversial football topics when it comes to the World Cup. And well, last night, England-USA 0-0. And as always, we're going to be ranking those players and their performances and the manager as well. Plenty of frustrations, hopefully some positives to take away. We'll find out. You can get in touch though. Please do drop us a comment. What do you think the rankings were for those players? Are you feeling positive going into that final group game against Wales? Let us know your thoughts. Now, as always, we get told we're wrong. It's not me, it's not my opinions, it is our guests. So let's introduce them. James Allcott, Djellab, great to have you both here. Right, that is how we're starting this one. A big sigh right there. Frustrating night. Let's get into the rankings of them. In the last ranking show, though, we didn't have any 1 to 5s. I have a feeling, Zach, we're going to have plenty of 1 to 5. Starting with Pickford.
Yeah. Look, I think Jordan Pickford's quite a simple one. We didn't concede. He didn't really have that much to do in the end. I think USA's best shot kind of went off the crossbar, and personally think he kind of had it covered anyway. The way I kind of see 1 to 10 is that actually 6 is an average performance. You haven't done anything too special.
We're saying that out from the beginning. That is what a 6 is average.
Precisely, and you haven't done anything too bad. And so, yeah, I personally would be thinking 6 for Jordan. Like, he just didn't have anything to do, which kind of inherently means didn't have any errors to make, but also didn't have any good saves to make.
Interesting, because a lot of people on Twitter, there was a tweet that went out asking people to rank their player ratings. So we've got quite a few of those. People did not hold back. They put Jordan Pickford as a 5 because it feels like even though he didn't have much to do, you still do get worried. And when the USA were coming forward, I worry with Jordan Pickford sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, I do get a little bit worried that there is a mistake there, James.
There was one corner where he sort of flapped at it and it went over his head, and that was a concern. Yeah, I think, look, when we're doing something like this, I think sometimes people will kind of get a lesser mark because the whole team was rubbish, and let's be honest. Like, I want to be optimistic, and at the end of this, come back to me and I'll give you that. But we're going to have to critique a lot of these players because it was no way near good enough. Of that 1 to 11, Jordan Pickford doesn't play a huge part in that because he didn't have to make too many saves. When he was beaten, it hit the crossbar, or essentially it was headed away by someone like Harry Maguire. But yeah, I think look, you can go back and watch that around video, and our ratings are high because the whole team does do well. And I think today it's going to be a lot of these. It's going to be a lot of these because understandably so. But I don't think Pickford deserves any heat in this video. And again, I need to get this out. Okay, so 24 hours after a game, that's what they say, don't they? You can talk about it, you can feel a little bit low, but then we move forward. So we're still in that 24-hour window. But Jordan Pickford will stay away from it for now. I think 6 is fine.
Yeah. Right, feels like we are going to have a lot of venting, a lot of sharing,
to get it out,
feelings as well. Right, so let's get a paddle up then. What are we going for Jordan Pickford?
I'm happy to go with 6, to be honest.
6? Right, we're sticking with 6 then for Jordan Pickford. Quite funny, the tweet reads, getting the replies and score every player from 1 to 10. There was a reply to that. David O'Leary says, good job you specified the range, or it would look mostly like this, lots of zeros. So we've gone 6 though for Jordan Pickford. Let's go then with the right back, Kieran Trippier. A lot of praise in the first game, those leadership qualities. Didn't see it really yesterday, James.
I think there were some tactical problems for me. I think as we get into the forwards, I think actually the back line had the ball a lot, and I think every single player we can critique. There were problems, and with Kieran Trippier, I think the problem, and it will be a bit of a theme in this video, is that didn't play the ball forward, didn't play the ball forward quickly enough. Took too long with it. I think we know he's not going to dribble and go and play as a winger. So his job is to use what he's great at, which is vision, distribution. Yeah. Didn't do it quickly enough. I think he had well over 80 touches of the ball. And on that right-hand side, we wanted a little bit more. There was a moment in the first half where I think the ball was played into Saka, went to Trippier, and Trippier played that ball quickly to Bellingham as the third runner. And I was like, yes, this is what we want to see, like cutting through a team. But Trippier, when you've got someone like Trent on the bench, him being sort of sensible is good. You've got Anthony Robinson who's bombing up down the left-hand side as well. So I think the reason Southgate didn't bring on Trent, and we'll talk about Southgate as well, but in terms of bringing on Trent, I think the reason why he didn't do that was because of the concern of Anthony Robinson and Pulisic. The concern with Trent is defensively, and Trippier defensively was fine, got through it, and there were moments of overload with Anthony Robinson, but with the ball, and every single player in this team with the ball, no way near good enough for me. So for me,
oh wow, you looked at the.
oh, well, I haven't got a 5 with me. Do you know what? I'm not happy with the performance, so I'm going to go with 4 with Trippier because there's no reason for us to not be better. The attitude from 1 to 11 wasn't good enough.
I mean, there's some 5s in here for Kieran Trippier, but lots of 2s, 3s, 4s. A lot of people looking at his performance, and I guess it's difficult because attacking-wise, he can be great, but very different to Kyle Walker, very different to Trent, as you said. Free kick, set pieces, brilliant, of course. But when you have got those quick wingers running at him, again, you do worry that there's maybe a slight mistake in there, Zach. So 4 or 5, what are we sticking with? What are we saying? What are we rating him?
I'll let you go with 4 with Trippier.
4.
Yeah, I would like to see him kind of go a bit more forwards, like a bit more adventurous. It's, as you mentioned, sometimes we get into attack and it'd be like we only had 2 men forward.
And the option was there a lot. You know, there was space in behind Anthony Robertson. We didn't utilise the space in behind, which was, it just felt really obvious. And look, if you want to play, that's fine. And Southgate said, look, we played well out from the back. You didn't, because you need to get in behind the opposition, and I think we need to have different ways of getting in behind the opposition. Sometimes it will be to feet with Saka, which we did brilliantly in the Iran game, but sometimes you've got to look to get in behind. I think Saka's positioning didn't help Trippier, but Trippier isn't going to dribble past players. He's never done that at all. So it needs to come from his passing, and it didn't.
John Stones, let's move on. I mean, again, not frustrated, I think was the word for him. He looked like he was trying different things and the team weren't responding.
The 2 players that I think, we'll get onto them as well, are the 2 centre-backs that
let's
probably
look at
had
both
good
then,
games.
as a
Yeah, I think in terms of Harry Maguire and John Stones, they did the best they could. They defended really well. John Stones and Maguire put in really great tackles and blocks when the USA did go through. In terms of maybe trying to distribute the ball, like for instance, Harry Maguire, I'd be looking more of a 7. I thought he had a really good game, did what he had to do. Every time there was a set piece, he was in the right area. He was unlucky maybe not to get a clean header on them. And when the corner, there was a time just before the end of the first half, the USA had 3 corners in a row. And it kind of felt like, oh, okay, Harry Maguire's got his hand on that one, brilliant. Harry Maguire's got his head on the second one, brilliant. And then the third one, you're like, okay, 3rd time in a row, 3rd time lucky. Harry Maguire clears it.
Yeah.
And he did his job fantastically well. When he did
rinse and repeat in the second half as well. Yeah. There was a similar thing. We had like 4 corners.
100%.
And we said that 6 was average. John Stones then, if we're saying that Harry Maguire was better than average, John Stones average?
I'd say 6. And that's not because he didn't necessarily do anything wrong. I just thought, I felt like Harry was trying to progress the ball. And that's, I think, is maybe his job a little bit more in that England squad, to progress the ball a bit more, try and do the 60-yard balls. There's one ball he did in the first half over to, I think, whoever was on the left wing. That was outrageous and got us into an attack. It was very rare that happened in that game. Whereas John Stones, I think, out of the 2, isn't maybe tasked with doing that, isn't tasked with trying to progress the ball as much as Harry Maguire is, even though in the City side it is slightly different. And so, yeah, I think he had a bet, like a 6, like an average performance, did his job really well, defended really well, and we kept a clean sheet at the end of the day, and essentially that is the centre-back's job.
Right, well, let's say then 6 average for John Stones. Harry Maguire, moving on.
Okay.
Solid performance. James wanted to really say it there.
There's just so much in my mind right now.
Harry Maguire, let's move on to him. Quick look at his game by numbers. 94 touches, 8 clearances the most, 8 long passes completed most, 6 passes until the final third, 5 duels won, 3 aerial duels won as well. Solid from him last night, James.
Defensively, superb.
Yeah.
But I would say USA, in terms of a striker that really makes you think, I don't think they really have that, if I'm honest, and I think that's why they didn't score a goal, because we were so poor. Defensively, great. I would say, again, if we're trying to stay level with this, Harry Maguire is one of those where everyone's going to kind of rave about him, just a bit like everyone kind of went a bit angry at Luke Shaw in the last game. Luke Shaw didn't do anything wrong in the last game, but everyone else was so good that he kind of got some form of critique just to kind of make it interesting. I think with Maguire, what I would say is that he was another one that, with all those touches, there's a bit of stat padding going on there. Defensively, good with the clearances, but he could have played the ball quicker as well at times. Or most where he could have played the ball to Shaw quicker. There's moments where he probably could have played the ball to Sterling or Kane a little bit quicker, if we're being fair. But I would give Harry Maguire a 7. I would give Stones a 7 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just because...
Isn't they had the same game?
I don't think the options were there for Stones to pass the ball. I was right behind the goal, so I could see them. And there were, in my mind, at the game, there were moments more so with Maguire where I was like, go, play it. Stones less so. It was maybe a bit more congested on that right-hand side, and because of that, I'll kind of even them out, and I've given both a 7.
I mean, a lot of 8s right here for Harry Maguire. I don't even think we've got the
That's
8
fine.
paddle here, have we?
We haven't
We haven't got the 8.
I've got one player who's getting an 8.
Okay.
Here, and it's neither of these two.
Right, we'll come on to them. A quite interesting one. Rick, the V1, says Maguire looked decent, the rest bang average. We've qualified now, so might as well mix it up for the final group game. Looking at the other defenders available, we are focusing obviously on Maguire and Stones. I mean, would you switch it up going into that Wales game? You've got Ben White, Connor Cody hasn't seen any international action in these tournaments, the last one and this one, for a while.
The only reason why I would maybe think about switching it up is towards the end of the game you saw Maguire holding his glue or his hammy, whatever it was, and so this is a guy who hasn't played much football this season for Manchester United. His fitness going into this wasn't at the level of the others, though to be quite honest, looking at full time, a lot of the players looked like they were out of breath and really looked like they're having a tough time out there. And so yeah, if it was to just kind of make sure that he was going to be fit for the next ones, I completely understand why. And look, Ben White's been fantastic this season. I think he's deserving of maybe getting a chance at the World Cup to try and prove himself. I've got no issue with that. And so, yeah, if it's more for like safety concerns, then 100%.
Right, why do they look tired though? Because second game in, they're in the middle of the tournament, or the beginning of the tournament, I should say, but middle of the season. They're fit. These are athletes that surely... Is it the heat? Is it the time difference? Have they not adjusted? Have they not got the playing style right for those players? I genuinely don't know.
For me, it's the attitude. The attitude was wrong yesterday. It was completely wrong. I think they've won 6-2, and even if they want to, because I think they're quite a grounded bunch, I think they went into this game going, we're really good. We're really, really good, and we're just going to kind of walk through this team. And, well, look, we were at the Iran game. Iran offered nothing in terms of getting at the opposition, and so we were able to just sort of, it was like a training match, to be honest. We were able to like pop it around them, and I think we were kind of, if they wanted to think that way or not, they stepped into this game thinking it would be a similar tempo, and it wasn't. They were a much smarter team, USA. Their off the ball shape was really, really good, and so you have to play quicker. You have to play with, Gareth Southgate said it himself, zip. We didn't play with any zip. There was no tempo of what we were doing. And I would have excused it in the Iran game, especially once you get 3-0 up. But in this game, if you start like that, fine. But then after half-time, I expect a response. And I think it was almost too late in their minds. Because the game's at 10 o'clock here, guys. It's an air-conditioned stadium. There's no reason for fatigue, if I'm honest.
Right, well, let's move on then to left-back Luke Shaw. Is it time to just accept that Luke Shaw is the player he is? He doesn't get round the winger, he's not on the overlap, he's great defensively. It feels like everyone wants more from him, that he's not that style of player.
I mean, Luke Shaw, it's tough because when you look into his position, it's not like you have someone like Ben Chilwell there to be providing competition, someone who is maybe going to go forward. You have your cards there, and do you really realistically want to play maybe a right-footed right back at left back? It feels like you're kind of putting a square peg into a round hole. Luke Shaw at the Euros last year was someone who got a lot of praise for England because he did do very well, and I think, again, you mentioned it against Iran, he's someone that got maybe a bit of criticism because England was so good. I think he kind of fell at the same level as everyone else last night and just wasn't able to put an impact on that game. And maybe it comes from the management saying, look, we've got to be aware of the USA going forward. And whilst we are criticising England, I do think we have to give credit where credit's due to the USA. They were a much better team, a much better performance compared to that second half against Wales. They were resolute. They made it tough for England to play through them. They were compact. And so I feel like with the way you watch how Raheem Sterling plays on that left wing, and with Mason Mount also drifting out into that left, at times it can get quite convoluted in the way that Bellingham also wants to push forward. I think maybe there's instructions for Luke Shaw to kind of maybe be a bit more reserved. However, at the same time, it wasn't the best of performances.
I think you're being kind there. I think his body language was completely wrong. When I'm talking about attitude, it's his face I think of, if I'm honest. And he can be all action. He can, if he wants to. But I think when he's got his, I know this is, people will say this is ridiculous, when he's kind of got his socks down, his shirt out, and he's trotting about, it's not enough. And body language does matter, because we'll talk about a player later on who came on and made a difference from his passing, but also his body language as well. And on that left-hand side, when you've got Sterling there, Mount popping over, Kane coming to get involved as well, Luke Shaw needs to set the tone a lot of the time, and he needs to be going, show for it, get on the ball, and then punch it to those players in those half spaces. He didn't do that. In terms of the overlaps, there was one moment, I think we're all probably thinking about it, there was a moment where he can bomb on and get to the byline and he plays it. And you can, every single player has the opportunity to set the tempo there, especially the fullbacks with the amount of touches they've got, and he didn't. He was really poor.
But what about, though, if he's not been asked to do that?
This is
what
what
about if the manager said, no, I don't want you to overlap, actually, I want you to play the position I'm asking you to play. Maybe it's not the socks and the shirt. Maybe it's not about that body language. Maybe he's actually just been asked to do the role that he's actually doing.
It's still tempo. I'm not, forget the overlap then. He doesn't have to overlap if that's what he's been told. But get on the ball and play two-touch, play quickly. It was too nonchalant for me.
It was conservative,
way too nonchalant.
really conservative.
Right then, so what we're saying, Luke Shaw score.
I think it's probably your side to be honest,
James.
Do you know what?
Right into what
I think I was going to have a bit of variance
picked up here.
It wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. You know, I think as much as we went over the top in the Iran game, right? So let's go slightly over the top with this as well. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough.
Yeah,
3 for me.
Especially with how England want, like the way Premier League football is now, and football in general is so much about your fullbacks bombing forward and getting down that wing, and you would be wanting that from you, sure.
Right, and let's move into midfield. Let's look at Declan Rice. Again, it's so frustrating, it's so difficult, so easy to be negative as well. Zach, any positives at all?
Well, I was actually going to say, when we left the stadium, the first name that was mentioned by James here was Declan Rice. You weren't a big fan of his performance. You felt at times that he was hiding.
I love Declan Rice. I love him so much. But even with the Iran game, I was thinking, okay, we've got a kind of triangle here, and I think that a lot of what we're talking about here, I think is fair, and I think they will look back at it and go, okay, can we tweak this, can we tweak that? His body positioning as someone who's going to be that pivot player. Now, what you can critique is go, Bellingham, why aren't you getting on the ball more? Why isn't Mount getting on the ball more? Why isn't Sterling getting on the ball? Why isn't Saka doing that as well? But I think also if we're trying to play through the thirds and he's the guy who sits there, if he is going to be tasked with that, he has to get on the ball. He has to get on the ball on the half turn. And I think he needs to be a bit cuter with the angles of which he gets it, because there's a lot of times where he had his kind of back to goal and he doesn't know what's going on behind him. He's not ready to turn with the ball and then progress the ball. That's how we're going to play through teams. And again, he was all action against Iran and he was able to be facing the goal, get at players. In this game, he didn't do that. They let us have the ball and he didn't get on it enough. And there really did feel like there were moments where he was kind of hiding behind those attackers. Again, I think some of this is like subconscious. I think he's kind of going, yeah, give it to me. But there are runs where you're going to go, well, he's not going to give you the ball there. Does he need a bit more help from Bellingham? Does he need to sort of move into a different position and almost come into a back three? That was something that Tyler Adams did a lot, actually, in the game against Wales. There are different ways of doing it. And I think it's not all on him, because there has to be different ways of getting up the pitch. But in terms of what he was sort of tasked to do, he didn't get on the ball enough, he didn't progress the ball enough, and it wasn't good enough.
It's a shame as well, because one of the best things you see him do for West Ham is actually take that ball forward and drive forward. And it does feel like at times, you saw it against Iran, that he's been told, no, you've got to sit here, let Bellingham go forward and take it and progress it. And look, it works against Iran, it didn't work against the USA, and so you can have... What's a shame is that, like, we know for a fact that Bellingham can defend, he can also drop deep, and so you'd maybe like to see both kind of, if Bellingham goes forward, then okay, Rice drops back. But if Rice wants to push forward, then see Bellingham could drop back and let Rice have a go. And it also just, for the USA, you then don't know what to expect all the time. I feel like you get 20 minutes in, the USA go, well, Rice has not gone past halfway line, so we know what to expect now.
Right, well, gut feeling, what we're going with for a ranking for Declan Rice?
One game in isolation, 3.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 5 for Zach.
I was thinking more 4, but I don't have 4.
So we split the difference.
Split the difference. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go 4.
Go 4. Maybe 4 is fair.
Yeah.
Right, then let's talk about his partner in that midfield. You were waxing lyrical about him after the first game. Zach, thoughts?
No, it's a shame. It's a real shame, because I thought against Iran, like, I gave him a 10. I thought he was fantastic. He did so much. He wanted the ball. He was fighting for every ball. In the first 10 minutes, I thought, oh, nice, we're going to get another Bellingham performance similar to how we did against Iran. He wanted it. He was driving forward. And then the rest of the game happened, and it seemed like for the rest of the 80 minutes, I didn't notice him. Or obviously he got subbed off eventually, but I just didn't notice Bellingham. Whereas against Iran, it felt like everything that was going forward for England was coming through Bellingham, whether that was him progressing it, him winning the ball back, him challenging for everything, or calling for it. And against the USA, I just barely noticed him, which was such a shame, because it was like a complete opposite of the performance that we saw against Iran. And again, credit where credit's due. I thought McKennie and Tyler Adams it was fantastic for the USA in midfield and did a really good job at kind of making it tough for our two midfielders in that sense as well, especially McKennie. He really did surprise me. But yeah, with Bellingham, it was such a shame to have gone from a performance where he was like getting a huge amount of praise, number one from myself, to one where I just didn't notice him during the game.
Well, Sif82 gave Bellingham a 5, and he says Southgate's tactics killing his game. James, agree with that? Do you think that actually it's the position he's been asked to play once again?
Yeah, do you know what? I think sometimes these players can have a mind of their own as well.
Yeah.
You know, people will be screaming, you've got to play 4, you've got to play 4, you've got to play Bellingham, you've got to play, you know, all these things, you've got to have these attacking players. They're all on the pitch. You know, have a mind of your own. Bellingham, the good things that we did, if you watch the highlights, often it's him as a third runner. So he did do that. I would have liked to see him drop deep and pick up the ball at times, but I think the same goes for someone like Mason Mount. I want to see a bit more. I want to see a bit more intelligence from the whole group when it's not going right. And again, maybe they're just going by the letter of the law when it comes to Southgate. We don't know that. I think they are smart men who can go, right, this isn't really working. Declan, swap with me for a second. I'll pick up the ball. Just to pick up the ball. I didn't think he was terrible. He certainly wasn't as good as he was in the Iran game. I would give him a 5. I think a 5, or maybe. Yeah,
I can agree to that.
He wasn't at his levels, so I would give him a 5.
5, right? We'll take that. Okay. Next player, a lot of people have been sharing their thoughts on him. Mason Mount playing in that 10 role last night. Zach.
Yeah, look.
I don't know what to say. Come to you.
Look, we kind of. I mentioned it last time, where what was so good about Mason last time was his pressing, was his running against Iran. But in this game, he was kind of just doing the same essentially, but not making an impact on the ball. He wasn't able to get the ball half the time, and he was essentially just pressing the United States defence consistently. But then you'd look at the other players, and they weren't pressing the other states' players, and so it was a very easy out pass for them when they were getting pressed by Mount. It's a weird one with Mason because I always think he is such a creative, such a fantastic technical player to watch, and sometimes in this England squad, and actually for Chelsea as well at times, he's used as just run. Just run, press people down, that's what we want you to do. And obviously, there's obviously an idea in that for the fact that also Gareth Southgate called up someone like Conor Gallagher, who's a fantastic presser. Yeah. And I think it's a bit of a shame because whilst I do agree it would have been maybe nice to see someone like Phil Foden get a chance as well, Mason Mount has that ability to be really creative, to be technical, to be good on the ball, to dribble with the ball. I've seen it many a time for Chelsea. Do
you think he's struggling with the critique a little bit? Because Mason Mount is the go-to one for England fans to get angry about.
100%. For a while now, it's been if there's an England performance, what did Mason Mount do? And I think the other issue he has is someone like Phil Foden is the guy that people instantly go, well, Phil Foden can play in that position. Yeah. He's the 10. And obviously, with the way Foden's season's being, it's completely understandable to have that argument. There's a reason why Mount is loved by every manager he's ever been managed by, because he does what they want him to do. He does what every manager wants him to do. It's a shame, though, because I feel like if you let him have a bit more creative freedom, he could really take it to another level and shine like he has at times for Chelsea. But I can also see why people are instantly negative. I just think sometimes when England have a bad performance, the first thing is, what did Mount do? Yeah. What did Mount do? Yeah. Whereas I think there were a lot of players that were also quite poor.
He received a lot of criticism, lots of zeros, lots of ones.
I think that's playing on his mind a little bit. I really do. I think there were little moments where he was sort of getting the ball caught under his feet, and that's not Mason Mount. He's a tidy player.
Could you feel it in the stadium?
Yeah, I think you could feel it. I think people kind of not after him, but I think he almost it's difficult because he ends up contributing to it himself. Because he has a couple of bad touches, the ball gets under his feet, we get to 60 minutes. And also, look, starting with the same team made complete sense. You cannot critique 100%. That, right? But Southgate had to take him off. He had to. It wasn't really working. And I think he's made comments about how Foden, should be on the left and should be in the middle. In my opinion, that's wrong. You have to make that change. It's a straight swap there. In terms of Mason Mount, I think that again, midfield combinations. Can he get involved a little bit more? Can he go and get on the ball a little bit more? Yes, definitely. Didn't touch the ball enough, but he's very diligent. And I think to a man again, they didn't take initiative themselves. At some point, you have to go, okay, look, Declan, you're not getting on the ball here. Let me come to this position. Because there were areas on the pitch where those players could have got on the ball, and he didn't. So it was a bad performance, but he's not a bad player.
Right, well, let's get a score then for Mason Mount, and we'll move on to the attackers, the forwards, I should say. 4?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to pick up a 3.
No, you're
yeah,
okay.
4.
You're okay.
I'm happy with a 4. Yeah, I think it's that's a fair enough.
Right, well, if you agree or disagree, jump in the comments, let us know, because yeah, as I said, Mason Mount was the most talked about. Let's move on then. Raheem Sterling. Again, another big sigh from I think all three of us. Didn't quite get it moving last night.
Well, he's another. I mentioned it about Jude, how I felt like I didn't notice him in the game. Raheem Sterling, I think I kind of forgot was playing at times. That left wing was really struggling. I think maybe that was contributed by the lack of help from Luke Shaw, with Mason also trying to kind of coming over to it. Raheem Sterling, it was tough because it was almost as if there was a few times I saw him trying to make that run beyond the last man, trying to get for an over-the-top ball or a ball through the middle, whatever it might have been, and just wasn't being found, or instead England would go and turn back and give it back to the centre-back and go that way. And so he was trying, I felt like there was, especially in the first half, maybe less so in the second half, he was definitely trying to be penetrative to the United States defence. But overall, it was a guy that just he didn't notice, and because of that, I reckon probably did get rated quite lowly.
Well, he did definitely on Twitter. John gave him a -7, saying the worst player on the pitch. I've got an issue with that because I know it really is.
-7.
I have got an issue with it because he's the scapegoat.
He
always is. It feels like anything goes wrong, England don't quite get it right. Everyone looks straight to Raheem Sterling. He's the most capped England player in the squad, most experienced as well. It's not just his fault, James.
Well, do you know what? I have, he was at QPR a long time ago, so I always got to look to defend him, and I have defended him a long time. And I think he has proved enough over the last 2 tournaments that I think the scapegoat thing, I think it's moved away a little bit. I'm setting this all up because I've got to be honest. I think he was the worst player for England. I do. I think when you look at the average positions from this game, there's a very clear area on this pitch where he could have got on the ball like he did against Iran. I thought his movement was fantastic against Iran, and he was brave enough to pick up the ball, drop and pick up the ball, but also spin in and make those runs in behind. I thought he was so lethargic. I thought he didn't want to get on the ball. I thought Mason Mount again was on that right-hand side that little bit more, and so there was moments where Maguire, we were talking about Maguire, and I was saying he could have played the ball quicker. Sometimes he couldn't because Sterling didn't come and get it. I thought he was really, really bad. I thought when they had the ball, I don't think he worked hard enough. I thought there was a moment when the ball comes across and you think, what does Sterling do brilliantly? He's always waiting in there, and he wasn't. I thought this was one of the worst performances that he's had for England. I think he had 27 touches, and the back line's having 80, 90 touches. The midfield's having 40-odd touches. He's got to get on the ball more. He has to get on the ball more. And again, all of these will be on this performance. Does he start the next game? Maybe you show that, he might have that motivation for the next one. I thought he was really, really, really bad.
Right, well, let's get a score then, because I don't think anything else has to be said. 2 from James. Zach, would agree, disagree? Have you got a different number?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with a 2 or a 3, but
I think we've got to be fair both ways. Sometimes his performance has been good and he's not got the goals. Yesterday, he's better than that.
Yeah.
He's better than that.
Let's look at Bukayo Saka then on the other wing. I mean, again, very quiet performance from him.
It was, and again a shame because in the Iran game he was another player that we gave a 10, someone who looked fantastic, who wanted the ball, was happy, more than willing to drive at people. I think he had the same issue in terms of he just wasn't being able to get fed the ball at times. It was so frustrating because there'd be so many times where the England defence or the midfield would have that, and then instead of trying the maybe riskier pass, it would just be a shift back to the centre back. Here you go. Let's just rotate it. The amount of times I've seen that ball go right to left happens a lot for Chelsea. I think that's one of their biggest issues as well. But Bukayo Saka. Yeah, there was. I spoke about Raheem Sterling maybe trying to be penetrative. I didn't necessarily think Saka was either. He's someone that kind of had a. I think the USA did very well at marking out. Look, Saka is very, very good. He's got a guy that against Iran, a lot of England's goals came through, and so did a very good job at trying to mark him out. The midfield was kind of doubling up on him at times when one of the centre backs was also doing really, really well, and so. he essentially wasn't allowed to kind of be free at any point. I felt every time he got the ball, he was just instantly getting closed down by the USA. But that's where it's on the other players to try and help him out and to try and give him an offload, a quick pass around the back. And I mean, you mentioned earlier, in everything that England did well, it came maybe from the right side where Jude Bellingham would help into that, help with Bukayo Saka and maybe Harry Kane or Mason Mount and make a little three. But that didn't happen very often, and so yeah, it was by his standards. I think he would be quite disappointed.
Well, he played 78 minutes, didn't he? And some would say maybe he should have come off earlier to give a chance for other players to have some more time, some more freedom. Zach, what would you give Bukayo Saka? Let's get a score.
I'd be looking at kind of James's cards. Okay. I think.
Well, you know, have your own mind.
Yeah,
He's only got 5.
I'm only up to 5, so I'd probably say maybe a 4.
You're going for a 4. Do you know what? With Saka, this is one where I would go. So I did a preview on my channel. The big thing for me was I wanted Saka to play more wide. In Iran, for the Iran game, he played a bit more in those half spaces and a bit deeper, and it worked because he got on it. He was able to turn.
Yeah.
We needed an extra body there. Mount should have done that, and I would have liked to see Saka play wider. I can't put that on Saka. I've got to put that on Southgate. And so, for me, I think 4's just about right. He was off. He could have been better, but I think tactically we got the use of him wrong.
A lot of people are saying 4 on these tweets and in the comments right here. Let's move to the main man up top, Harry Kane. Lots of questions about his fitness. I think last night showed that he's not 100%, James.
I thought, another one. I think he's alongside Sterling. I thought he's one of our worst players. Wasn't able to get involved. And actually, normally he's one of those guys who would say Tottenham. He will go, screw it. I'm gonna drop deeper and get on the ball. He didn't do that. Was that because it's a little bit congested?
He did play deep though, just didn't get on the ball.
Yeah. In terms of average positions, Mount's ahead of him, Saka's ahead of him. But again, he's not getting on the ball enough. I actually think on that left-hand side, he's kept coming onto the right-hand side as well. Could he have come over to the left-hand side and picked up the ball there more? Yes, I think he could have. Missed a header, missed another chance, which was a little bit harder. The header, that's from Kane's standards, he's got to score that. It's a 2 for me. I think he was another bad game.
Any other day of the week, you would have bet your house on Harry Kane scoring that goal, scoring in that first half within the first 10 minutes. Opportunity comes from the right. The USA get a block on it, but he had anywhere to kind of place it, and it wasn't the best shot in the end.
You've got to take him off. You have to take him off. I get it's Harry Kane. I get he scored all these goals, but you have to use your eyes. He was knackered, absolutely knackered, and I was completely amazed. And the big storyline's been he's been injured, so. It's not working. He could be injured. Get him off the pitch. There's
a lot of variety in the scores, from 0s up to 10s from some people as well. Does that just not highlight how confused people are about his actual role? Is he an out-and-out striker? Is he meant to drop deeper? If it is that Gareth Southgate's asked him to drop deeper, he's done that. But isn't he the goal scorer? Isn't he the main threat?
Harry's done this throughout his whole career of when he's not... If in the first 20 minutes, first half an hour, he's not getting on the ball enough, because he likes to be on the ball, and he's good on the ball as well. He's a great passer. So when he's not on the ball enough, he will drop in and he will try and get that ball. And as you said, he was dropping in, he just wasn't getting that ball. And it was frustrating because when England did get forward onto the wing to kind of maybe put a ball into it, Harry wasn't in the box to kind of be there to finish it off.
I think the bottom line for me is he can be more bullish. I've spoken about attitude and body language. He could be so much more bullish, and he is so strong with the ball. He could have got involved and gone, give me the ball, stuck his bum out, and started something. Yeah. And he didn't. I mean, maybe that's because we're not playing the ball long enough to him. But again, I think someone of his quality, I think he's world class, and that wasn't a world class.
And obviously, being the leader that he is, we'll get onto a player that came on in a minute, and I thought he was great just for the energy he brought in. When he was looking at those England players, I just wanted one of the players to be like, lads, come on, what are we doing here? Let's get a bit of energy into this. Yeah. And you maybe looked at someone like Harry Kane to do that, and he didn't do that either.
James, you gave him a 2. Are we agreeing with that? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Just for this match, by the way.
Yeah, just for this match.
We love you, Harry. We love you. But we need a little bit more too.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, let's look at the subs. Henderson comes on and Grealish at the same time around the 68th minute, and then Marcus Rashford 78th minute. Any highlights from there, James? There's one man you said you wanted to give a high score to.
Yeah, get your 8 out, Zach. Jordan Henderson. I thought, look, when he comes on,
7. Give it 1.
We'll give me the 8.
We got rid of it.
Where's the 8? That plus 1. There you go. I thought Jordan Henderson, when he came on, there was a few little murmurings in the crowd, which I understand and respect that, because I think just him is not enough, right? We needed to change the whole front three. But he came on and very, very, very quickly, completely changed the tone and had a bit of a ripple
Body
effect
language.
to the rest of the team, because has that experience, has that gravitas amongst the squad. And like I said, body language, energy. He went like that. He said, "Give me the ball."
Yeah.
He then played it quickly forward. He then made a channel run within
Sprinted.
15 seconds. And
Yeah.
it shows. It shows that it's a simple game at times. That things like that do make a big difference. And I thought he made a huge difference.
And the USA as well didn't know what to do for a minute or two, especially when because I don't know if I was one of the USA defenders. I'd be like, "Is that Jordan Henderson making a run down the left wing? What's happening here?"
But that's the point. Sometimes it's not about who's making the run. It's that you're making the run to stretch the opposition.
And the energy,
so little. There was so little like second movements of drop deep and spinning behind, and we've got the players to go and do that. And Henderson's sort of got that moving a little bit, and we were far better once he was on the pitch.
Star performer out of the subs. Then what would you give him?
I'd give him an 8.
I'm happy with the 8. And then you mentioned Jack Grealish, another guy who I actually thought on and who came on. And look, we mentioned it before with Jack. Is he's one of the best things that he is in the world at is winning fouls. And I quite liked it that he came on, he won a foul, and you know what? It wasn't just like, oh, nice, let's take the free kick. He had a bit of grit about him. He was, he was angry. He wanted to perform, and I like to see that. And I thought, with the way that England are, and with having the unique skill set that Harry Maguire has, and not just Harry Maguire, Harry Kane is also very good in the air as well. Declan Rice isn't too bad himself.
Good delivery too. That's one thing. Trippier, his delivery will always be great.
Exactly. And so getting someone like Jack Grealish on, it can win you those fouls in those areas. And I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but it felt like he'd won quite a few fouls just within the few minutes that he was on the pitch for. And so when we sat there at the 60th minute, I was thinking, it'd be good to get Jack on now, half an hour to make an impact. When in the end, obviously, he came on with not so much time left. And so it would have been good to see him on for longer. And so in terms of, we gave Jordan Henderson a 6.
An 8. We gave Henderson an 8.
Apologies. Jack would be a 7 for me.
Right, and just to round things off, overall performance, including Gareth Southgate as well. Where are we going? What are we saying for the full game? Full team?
I think, look, there were 2 substitutes short. Wilson needs to come on, Foden needs to come on, and they weren't done quickly enough.
Yeah.
He says in his post-match, zip. He's talking about zip. So how do you change zip? Either give him a rocket at half-time, or you change it. We've got 5 substitutes. We've got great depth, especially in the attacking positions. He didn't change it enough. I think Southgate wakes up this morning and goes, okay, yeah, we've got a draw, results fine, all that stuff, and he has to say what he has to say. I think he looks at his performance, and I think he's disappointed.
Let's give it a score out of 10. How would you rate England against the USA? What are we saying, James and Zach? The manager,
I'd go,
3?
Yeah, 3. I think 3 is fair. 3 is a fair score because we could. I think other people online were saying 2, 1, and that is England didn't lose.
Yeah.
England didn't lose.
We are miles better than that, and I
Exactly.
think that's the thing. Was like, again, we get past this video, it ends, I draw a line and I go, look, I know there's a lot of players on that pitch that can be better. Gareth Southgate can be better, and the players on the bench are exciting too.
Right, well, let's draw a line ourselves.
Oh.
We're saying 3. We could go on and we could talk about this all day long, but we know what's going to happen. We're going to play Wales, and all of a sudden it's coming home once again, and we'll be all smiles.
See you Tuesday.
Right, we will be back every single game day. Thank you to you guys for getting involved. Thank you to everyone that replied to the tweets as well. It definitely fuels all of this heated debate brought to you by Emirates. As always, we will be back every single game day talking about the big footballing topics here at the World Cup, and we'll see you tomorrow.